So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in. And because I'm going to, oh, you'll also need a hairdryer. You'll also need a hairdryer. I'll have to locate mine. I did not think that far ahead. I'm going to dip my brush in, and I'm wanting the darkest color to be up at the top because that's where the sky will be the darkest. So I'm going to take my phthalo blue and I'm just going to brush it on real quick. You don't got to think too hard about this because this is just the first layer. We're just putting in our color. And you could sub these colors out for whatever color you want your background to be. You don't have to duplicate mine. I just wanted to give you the color reference so you know what I did. In my original reference photo, I used cadmium red, cadmium orange, and cadmium yellow and mixed the bottom in with a little bit of white so it looked a little more like the color of bone. So I've got my basic kind of blue in. All right, now I'm going to move into my, and you want to do this very quickly. You don't want to overthink this too much. And normally I would probably put this directly on my palette, but because I'm not using very much of this, and this is a very small canvas, this is just a an 8x10, I'm just putting it directly on the brush. And just a quick little smattering. And I'm blending it in with what's already there. And now for my light. For this one, because I don't have very much of it left, I am going to go ahead and put this on the canvas. Otherwise, or directly on my palette here. Otherwise, it could make a small mess. And I'm going to blend this up. Just a little bit. We're just putting our base layer in, so I'm not super concerned about the overall consistency of the color because we're just kind of plotting our course. Don't forget to hit the sides of your canvas, especially if you're not going to have it wrapped in a frame. And I'm just hitting the sides real quick. And if you were wanting that smooth look like I had in my original, this is how you would achieve that. And I am going to throw a little bit of light in at the bottom. So I'm going to toss some white on my palette. You won't see a lot of this because a lot of this will get covered up by my black hill, but it's just in case it winds up showing a little bit. It's a just in case measure. And so I'm not going to bother doing the bottom for that reason because I know I'm doing the bottom black. All right, so I'm going to rinse my brush. Tap off the water on the inside of the cup. Never leave your brushes in the water. It is bad for the metal brackets that hold the wood onto the frame. All right, and now I'm going to put some of this phthalo blue on my palette, and I'm going to dip the sponge in. We're going to go in for a second layer. Now, when you layer phthalo blue, it does get darker and darker with every go. This is the goal that we're aiming for. We want something spooky. So I'm just going to take the ridges of it, and I'm just going to very lightly tap it in. Like there's not a lot on there. We're not like looking to paint a wall here. And then I'm just going to tap it onto my canvas. And you'll see that it's going to lift up paint as well as put paint down because it's still wet. This is what we want. And you're going to bring it down a little bit. You don't necessarily have to go all the way down because remember, we are going to be putting our spooky hill there. All right, and I'm going to take another round of it and go another layer. Again, not putting a whole lot on the sponge at a time. And if you wanted to go really spooky and really dark, you could introduce some black in your sky. I am not going to do that because I'm going to have a lot of black for my house, and I still want the house to sort of stand out against my background. So we've got our little bit of our like sky happening. Now you will want to rinse off your sponge after you're done. Just kind of dip it into your water, squish it around, and release the extra water back out. And set it aside. Okay. And I think I want to put a little bit of galaxy on this. Let me see if I've got one of my toothbrushes around here. Ah, there we go. All right, so I'm going to use an old toothbrush. And what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to mix in a little bit of my glow-in-the-dark paint into my white paint. Mix the two together a little bit. Or who knows, maybe I'll dab them separately. So this is going to be very messy. Make sure that you have an area where you can do this. You're going to dip your toothbrush into your paint. You're not going to cover it a whole lot. Again, just a little bit. We're not doing this like we're brushing our teeth with it, especially if you're using a smaller canvas like I am. And you're going to kind of spread it across the top, and you're going to flick. We are just kind of creating the sensation of stars a little bit. And I'm going to do it one more time. Again, just a little bit. Spreading it across the edge. And flick, 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 flick. And now I'm going to do the same thing with my glow-in-the-dark paint. My glow-in-the-dark paint does dry translucent, so I'm not too worried about it being a little overpowering. So I can put that on a little thicker because it's a very like loose paint and it will dry transparent. But I like the idea of it catching light and holding light and then maybe generating some actual glow-in-the-dark stars. So I'm going to let that be kind of on the heavy side. All right, so now we've kind of got a little bit of sky happening. I'm going to rinse off my brush and my hands. Now I'm going to grab my hairdryer real fast. I will be right back. All right, so I've got my hair dryer. While I do this part, I am going to mute the mic because it will be obnoxious and loud for you guys. All right, so when your paint is dry, and a good way to tell if something is dry is if you look at it from the side, if you see that it's shiny, it's probably still wet. Right, that's a great way to tell. Unless you're using metallic paints, in which case it will remain shiny, obviously. Okay, so we've got our basic sky in, right? Looks pretty dope, looks pretty cool. All right, let's continue on. All right, so I'm gonna use a piece of chalk so I can kind of see how I'm gonna sketch this out, and I'm gonna sketch out my hill. I don't want my hill to be too big. The canvas I originally painted this on was a 16 by 20, and this is considerably smaller. So I'm not gonna go very far. I'm probably gonna do like a hill. Like it should be kind of balanced, but it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, and let's make the shape of our hill. The shape of our hill is gonna be like, yeah, that's gonna be the shape of our hill. All right, so we've got kind of the shape of our hill. And I'm not going to worry about the trees so much yet, but I'm going to do a placeholder. I don't think I want to do my tree the same way I did that one. I'm probably going to do something a little more, I don't know, maybe a little more dead looking. Less whimsical, maybe. So we'll say something kind of like, you know what? Won't mess too much with perfection. I'll leave kind of the idea of the branch coming down off the side of the canvas there. And we'll continue to have this one kind of reach out towards the hill. And should have a nice rich stump. And I'm not going to do any more than that. The rest I'll figure out as I go. All right, so I'm going to grab my 1/4 inch straight brush and I'm going to put some black on my palette now. This is part of the reason why I consider this one to be a super easy painting, is because most of it is just shadow work, a little bit of gradient, and a little bit of paint in front of it. Very great for beginners. I actually taught this as a 10-person class to 12-year-olds a few years ago, and it was lovely. Like, it worked out wonderfully. And if you're having a hard time getting a clean line, just dip your brush in some water. You can also do this in other traditional Halloween colors like lime green and yellow. I'm aware that at this point, this kind of looks more like a winter painting, but we'll get there, I promise. We'll get there. Right, and again, I'm just gonna kind of fill this in down here. And I'll paint the bottom at the end just because I know it's gonna be black, so I'm not super worried about forgetting or messing up the color gradient. And what I'm using here is a fluid black, which means the paint is a little thin, but it spreads very nicely. And I like that for colors that I use a lot of, like whites and blacks, because it gives you an easier way to blend it. But it's also a good idea to ultimately have a really good thick titanium white for if you're ever trying to paint over top of something that's already colored, because otherwise you'll have to do so many coats that it will look ridiculous. But in this case, for this works out well. And I'm going to extend this a little more than I had originally over here and get down the sides. Okay, so I've got my hill in there. Now let's do our tree. And originally I did this a little different. I'll follow my original line here. In my line here. Oh, although I got to finish extending this side. And you don't have to always go over where you've already chalked. You can always wash away chalk markings with water. It's just to help you kind of frame out where you maybe want something to go. Okay, so we've got kind of the base of our tree. And up to a point, we know that they have to join together. So we're going to say that this is the joining point. Don't make the mistake of making your base too narrow. Tree trunks are wide. And I think I'm going to do something a little different over here in the middle of the trunk when I get to that part. And I'm going to take my smaller brush now, after rinsing off my little one here. And I'm going to start to kind of frame out these little side branches. In the old one, in my original, I did like curlicues, but I think for this one, I'm just gonna do kind of jagged lines. And make sure that they look uneven, broken, like, remember that this is a dead tree. Like this should not appear alive. Although when you connect the base of your branches, those parts should be a little wider and go out a little narrower. Make sure you've got some variability. And over here, again, widening the base just a little of the branch. And each little branch should have a few like offshoot branches. And I'll extend that one to end a little. There we go. And I feel like we maybe need one that kind of arcs down a little bit. Yeah, that looks better. I like that much better. And then on this side, again, making sure kind of widen just that little initial base of the branch, and then each little branch should have a couple of little branches. We're telling the story. And who knows, maybe we'll add a couple of like fallen leaves to the ground. I don't know, we'll see. I haven't gotten that far yet. And again, widening just the base of the branch and creating a few little offshoot branches. Actually, I don't feel like I was done with this side. widening at the base and creating a couple of extra branches. And it should go off the side because the tree kind of goes off the side. There. And you can see in this particular case, I went up a lot higher with my tree than I did in my original. And I did a little bit of a different shape. And I want a little more balance there. I want that a little more round. Right, this is a good time to do any corrections that you're wanting to do with the overall shape of your hill and your tree. This is a good point. And because I made my hill so big, I'm going to have a much smaller little creep house, and you'll see kind of how I put that together. But first things first, I got to decide what I want to do down here at the bottom. All right, originally I had a couple of different tombstones, but I think for this one, I'm going to have maybe just one. And I'm going to do a different shape of one than I did the first couple of times. I'm going to have it set kind of more like a traditional tombstone. And I think I might go actually add maybe a little bit of grass in the moment. And I'm going to do that with my fan brush. So I'm going to rinse off my brush real fast. Set it aside. And I'm going to use a fan brush because that is an easy way to get grass without working too hard to individually create all of that texture. And a fan brush looks like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip just the tips into the black to generate little bits of grass. And I'm not even going to dip all of it in at once. I'm literally just putting just the barest hint on there. And I'm going to go kind of from the bottom like that. Just to generate a little bit of texture up at the bottom. Nothing too insane. And I think I might do that a little bit up here on the top of my hill too. All right, rinse off my brush. And I think that's all I'm going to use that one for. All right, I'm going to go back to my line detail brush. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide on my house. So I'm going to look at the side here. I can see that most of my hill is nice and dry. So as long as I don't put my hands down where it's shiny, I won't have to worry about covering my hands in paint. So I'm going to do, I think, a little shape like that. A little shape like that. And then kind of off to the side. Okay. So now I'm going to fill that in. Actually, no, I'm not going to fill it all the way in. I am going to leave maybe a couple of squares. So I'm going to draw those squares out. So, and these are my windows. So I'm going to leave a little diamond shape kind of here. I'm going to leave a round shape over here. And maybe a little replicating the tombstone shape there. All right, and now I'm going to fill in the rest. And I think I'll extend that part out just a little bit there. And filling it in. There we go. So we got the basic shape of our house in. And chimney. And on the old one, I did fence posts, but I don't know that I necessarily want to do that for this one. I think for this one, instead, I might just put like a spider's web here in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of frame that out a little bit. So starting point, I don't want it to be exactly center. I kind of want it here. So I'm going to create my radiating points. And then I'm going to use an ultra thin brush. I'm going to grab out that makeup brush, I think. Where did I put it? I'm not sure where it went, but I think I've got another small detail brush laying around here. And now I'm going to draw in my web. So your web is just little U's repeated over and over and over again. And you're going to match up those U's in the neighboring pie section, for lack of a better term. And I think I'm going to have only part of this part go through. I'm going to do a couple, and then I'm going to actually have a little line for the spider. I'm going to draw the spider in. The spider is going to come dangling down off that corner. And just kind of like the suggestion of legs. And so we got kind of a little bit of a spider happening there. It's having its own cute little moment. And let's see. I don't think I want to include the cat in the swing on this one, just because I already have a lot going on here. What I might do instead is put maybe a cat sitting down here in the corner. I'm undecided. We'll see. But I will go ahead and make this space for my moon. Hi, Yoda. How are you? I know it's been a little minute. It's been a little minute since I've been back. You're surviving? How is the new location treating you? Oh, eek. I'm sorry. I know I haven't seen you stream a whole lot, and the few times you have, I haven't been able to drop in. But I'll have to, I'm trying to do this whole work-life balance thing. We'll see how well that goes. Oh, that's awesome. That is amazing. I am so happy for you. I live between oceans, but I never make it to any of them. I actually haven't gone, even though I live in Florida, I haven't been to the ocean this year at all. The last time I went was June last year, and I got a 3rd-degree burn on my back. Like, it blistered for weeks. All right, now, if you're uncomfortable with trying to freehand a circle, you can always grab the bottom of something that is circular to function as a template. In this case, I will use this to kind of make my moon. Yeah, it's all right. I'm surviving. So I don't know, do I want to do an eclipse moon like I did in my original, like a crescent moon, or do I want to do a full moon? Should I do a full moon this time? Yeah, let's go for a full moon, and I'll go over it with my UV light. Yeah, we'll do a full moon. And I'm being careful because my house is still wet over here, so that way I don't smear my paint all over my hands, as I am apt to do. We're going to fill it in white first, because if I try to go over this directly with yellow or a cream, it will show all of the blue behind it. Because warm colors tend to have less overall pigment in them, meaning that they are partially see-through paints usually. So when you're using, even with white, you know, white, when it's thin paint, still, you can still see the paint behind it. So you got to do this kind of thing in layers. Ooh, and maybe we'll put a bat across the moon. Maybe we'll put a bat across the moon. I kind of like that as a concept, being that I deleted the cat out of the equation. All right, and it's important that once you got your paint down to use circular strokes, because it is visible texture even in your paint at this stage. All right, so I'm going to hit it with the hairdryer real fast. I'm going to mute my mic for a moment so I don't destroy everyone's ears. Okay, that should hold us. Now let's go ahead and put our second layer of white in. Just so that way it's nice and crisp in its color. And what we're going to do is I'm going to mix in some of my glow in the dark paint in here while it's wet, just so it gives it kind of a little bit of glow potentially when it catches light and then, you know, is darkened. And I'm going to add a little bit, just a smidge of yellow. In fact, I might even use my glow-in-the-dark yellow paint just because it's also really thin. Glow-in-the-dark paint is really thin, guys. Like, very translucent. And I just want the hint of yellow in there. I don't want, like, a whole lot of it. Just because we gotta have some texture to our moon. Even if it's not super visible, just the suggestion of it, your brain will pick up on it. So I'm just going to add a little bit, not very uniform, just kind of, again, in that circular motion in a few places. It may not be very noticeable on camera right now, but it does make a difference when I'm looking at my painting. All right, and I'm going to rinse off my brush. And I'm going to get rid of my chalk lines from around my house using my wet brush. And get rid of the chalk lines from my tree. There we go. And I think I'm going to take a little bit of gray and outline my little windows and whatnot. So I'm going to mix just a little bit of black and white on my palette here. And I'm just going to kind of outline a little bit of this house, just so that way it sticks out a little more. Not a whole lot, just, and not even all the way around, just in a few places to provide some highlights against this super dark sky. And I'm going to put a little bit in my hill. Again, not a lot, because this is meant to be a super beginner friendly painting and I don't want to overcomplicate it. We are just providing just a little bit of texture, nothing too extreme. And, oh, I don't like that. That part, the angle went wrong. There we go. And I'm gonna do, I think, a little hollow in my tree. So I'm gonna make kind of a wobbly oval and kind of accentuate some lines around it. We're creating a little bit of a keyhole in our tree here. You could also do this with brown if you really wanted to, but I didn't really want to mix in any other paint than I already had here. And I'm going to throw a little layer of darker black here in the center, just to kind of be like, yeah, there's a hole there. And I'm just quick dashing some lines into the areas that I did black, only on this main part of this trunk. Just kind of highlighting, following the curve of my hill. Nothing too over dramatic. I know, me not over dramatic. What is the world coming to? Is it even still me? Right, and then we're going to kind of kiss our tombstone a little bit. Nothing too aggressive, just like just a little bit of the moonlight hitting it. That's all. There we go. I've been meaning to say that The pictures on Instagram, Yoda, are super cute. I am so happy for you guys. There we go. And now I'm going to take some straight white and add just a few of those highlights in there. Not a whole lot, just a few short strokes. Not unlike the way you would do a dash painting for texture. Okay, and I think I'm going to put white in my windows and then go over it with a little bit of yellow, like there's lights on in the house. And this gives you a chance to enlarge your windows if you manage to overfill them when you were painting in your house. Easy way to add it back in. All right, and I think I'm gonna do my ghost maybe by my grave and at my door entrance. So how I'm gonna do that is, I wish I had a filbert brush near me because that would be the best, but barring that, I would usually use something like this that's kind of rounded because, well, it's a round brush, but this one is a bit too big for the task at hand. This is one I use for clouds when I don't want them to accidentally look like the wrong thing. If you know, you know. So instead, I'm going to do it with a different square brush. So it's the same size as the one I was using earlier, the 1/4 inch square, but I need this one to be one that hasn't touched water because it has to be totally dry to do the effect I want. So I'm going to just barely dip the ends in the white, like literally just barely. And kind of nerve-wracking because it's been a little minute since I've done a dry brush like this. I'm going to kind of just set the paint down and let it drag out until it's nothing. So we've got kind of a little ghost there. Put just a little more on my brush. We'll do one over here. Let's see, where else might we want a little ghosty ghost? Let's say, nah, you know, I think that's good. I will kind of lighten this one up just a little more. And I'll make that one a little bigger. And then afterwards, I'll take a tiny brush and give it some eyeballs. So just a straight line, and for the mouth, another shorter straight line. With the thought process being that if your mouth is open to howl, then it would be kind of a long, dragged down oval. And that maybe not be super noticeable on camera, but I swear it's there. I swear it's there. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush. And I'm going to mix in some of that glow-in-the-dark paint on my windows and add a little bit of yellow in there. Again, the paint is really thin, so I'm not going to use a whole lot. I'm just kind of introducing the idea of, hey, there's someone in this house. The lights are on in this house. And I might go back and add just a little more in a couple of places on my moon. But again, not everywhere, just kind of like a smattering. Okay, do we feel like it needs anything else? Does it feel empty? Maybe I'll go ahead and actually do like the words rip. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. I wouldn't normally, but why not? Let's do R, I, and P. And we'll go ahead and give the spider some little eyes. And let's do a bat across the moon. Let's see, now I gotta remember how I did this. We got, ooh, my paint is all wet. I'm gonna hit with the hairdryer real fast first before I attempt that. All right. Ooh, I got a spot on my painting. Probably put my wrist down in something. So if you ever need to correct something afterwards, just cover it up after it's dry. And this is in a spot that's kind of purple, so I'll just kind of work that in there. And then hit it with like a little white dot. That way it looks intentional. Mistake gone. Okay, so let's go ahead and frame our windows. So we're going to have a little crossbar there. And we'll say, let me fix my line a little bit. Clean up that spot. There we go. And for this one, let's say that it is just a straight line down for that window bar. Let's say for this window that it is sort of cracked a little bit. Actually, yeah, let's do that for this one too. Okay, so we've got our little windows. Aw, thank you, Slev. Okay, and now for our bat. Now for a bat, I almost wish I had a little, I might actually do that with a Sharpie instead of with my paintbrush, because I don't think I've got a thin enough brush. So I'm going to do a little oval, just because I want to kind of frame it out first. And then now I can go back in. And I might do this with my dotting tool. just because it's so much smaller, it'll have an easier time doing what I want it to do. Whew, the ends got away from me a little bit. But we've got our little bit of a bat there. I'll make the body a little bigger, the main body. Yeah, cute little bat. All right, what do we think? Do we think she's finished? Do we think she looks good? Bring it up a little closer for you. This is kind of where we, oh, there we go. This is where we are at right now. Yeah, I think she looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and sign it. Okay. And I'm gonna sign in purple since that's what I have the most of on my palettes. All right, we are done, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope everyone has a spectacular day. I have put up a stream schedule that I, fingers crossed, will hopefully be able to keep and follow. Tomorrow's plan is to stream Disney Dreamlight Valley for the Dream Snaps challenge. Let's see. So Mondays will always be Star Ocean for the month of October. Star Ocean, The Last Hope. Tuesdays will be a simple painting like this. And then Wednesdays will be Disney Dreamlight Valley. And then Saturday will be a more complex painting, something like maybe Lily Munster or Corpse Bride. And then Halloween karaoke in Discord. So stay tuned if you want to do that. Make sure you check out and join Discord if you want to participate in the karaoke. Let's see who we can go raid today. Let's find a friend. All right. Ooh, Wezzy Boo is streaming Valorant. Let's go say hi to Wezzy Boo. Okay. Raid. It's been a minute since I did this. I hope I remembered this correctly. I didn't want to forget and lose all ability to do anything. Oh, no, oh, yeah. That's, never mind. No, I remember. It needs to do this. Raid. Wezzy Boo. Don't mind me. That's my raid message. Is that the right way? There we go. Ha-ha-za! Thank you guys for hanging out. Have a wonderful day.